Oh boy, I sure do like watching Godzilla vs Mechagodzilla 2.
What are you doing watching that garbage? That movie is awful and you should feel awful.
I'm not sure what you mean. I very much like the film for its great score, world building, story and relationship with baby Godzilla.
How can you like something like Godzilla vs Mechagodzilla 2 but hate something like Son of Godzilla? Like, I will never understand that.
Actually, I like both films very much equally. In fact, a lot of the higher tier Godzilla movies on my list are interchangeable. Son of Godzilla in my opinion is the most underrated of all the Godzilla movies. But I don't think that it's logical to assume that someone can't like it as opposed to liking Godzilla vs Mechagodzilla 2. Both movies are trying to do different things that just happen to have the introduction of Godzilla's son. Son of Godzilla has more simplicity to its story, which is on an island conducted by scientists working on a weather machine which has a giant spider and praying mantises. Godzilla vs Mechagodzilla 2 is more focused on Godzilla being a problem to the world, with urban environments being the main focal point of nearly all the battles with the monsters, save for the island at the beginning of the movie. Mechagodzilla is also a factor into the equation due to previous onslaughts of Godzilla attacking, while Son of Godzilla has at that point been I don't see why someone couldn't come to the conclusion that they prefer one over the other. And the story and monsters aren't the only thing different between the two anyway, but that's just a brief summary of why it's quite silly to say one can't like the other as well.
You just like the Heisei films because you grew up with them, and you only like films like Destroy Ya because it made you cry and he looks cool.
Actually, I never watched Godzilla until I was 14, and the ones I watched were the classic media versions of the Showa films that were on Netflix at the time, such as the 1956 American version of the original, Godzilla Raids Again, Mothra vs Godzilla, Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, Monster Zero, Godzilla's Revenge and Terror of Mechagodzilla, as well as Rodan. And that is even after I watched Godzilla 2000, Godzilla against Mechagodzilla and Godzilla Final Wars before I even watched Godzilla vs Destroyer. I just think Destroyer is a great movie and one of the best in the franchise.
No, you cannot joke about this.
So apparently there's this whole thing about Heisei being bad, because Miki Sagusa defends Godzilla despite the fact that he's killed people in the past 4 movies. Though it seems they only talk about the last 3 films in the Heisei series and not the whole thing, but still label it as such. Let's ignore the fact that baby Godzilla has no intention of harming anyone, or the fact that Godzilla only attacks when his son is in danger, or he's freaking dying. I mean, this isn't the first time Godzilla has been bad and turned good later on. In both series, Godzilla is seen to be good in some areas.
Well, how could Godzilla be good if he was always bad from the start? And now you're telling us we're supposed to think that he might be good?
You mean like Darth Vader, who up to this point in the movies was known to mass murder thousands upon millions of people, destroy star systems, mass murder children?
Fun begins.
Now you're telling me in freaking one movie, Return of the Jedi, Luke just thinks that his father can turn good? What a freaking god-awful movie. Why would Vader turn against the Emperor and kill him? Wow, the story changed because there's family involved. What a god-awful character. They totally ruined Star Wars. Aren't there stories out there where there's a creature or character that's nearly pure evil or just pure evil that seem to have a soft side? Most commonly with a family? Like, it's not exclusive to this movie?
Supersonic racing, try to keep your feet right on the ground. When you're supersonic racing, there's no time to look up.
Oh.
I suppose that means the story of King Kong, along with its follow-ups, are awful movies as well. Before you tell me that there's a difference between the two, and say that Godzilla only cared about his son, Kong didn't care about anything else other than Aunt Daryl. You see him in nearly every movie massacring innocent people. without remorse. And yet you're supposed to feel sorry for him.
He deserved it, didn't he?
If King Kong can do it, why can't Godzilla? Just because it's still framed as Godzilla destroying stuff in the same manner as he was before, doesn't mean that he's evil. Do you really need the movie to tell you abundantly clear that it's not supposed to be evil?
Hurry, let's go! He won't harm us. Gamera doesn't hurt people.
He's a giant monster, of course he's going to destroy stuff that's in a dense area.
You realize that in real life there's many conservationists that still fight to protect and conserve endangered species, even though they're dangerous to humans.
Godzilla is probably the most endangered creature.
But because he's so big, he can cause collateral damage to cities.
There are characters in the Godzilla franchise like Miki Sagusa, who treat him like an endangered species like we do in real life. It all goes back to Hana's famous quote about Rodan. Monsters are tragic beings. They are born too tall, too strong, too heavy. They are not evil by choice. That is their tragedy. They do not attack people because they want to, but because of their size and strength, mankind has no other choice but to defend itself. After several stories such as this, people end up having an affection for the monsters. They end up caring about them. Doesn't that seem familiar? The Heisei series took this and ran with it. There's a reason why it's still popular among fans today. And by that logic, if Miki Sagusa is a terrible character, wouldn't that mean that Dr. Yamane in the original Godzilla is also a bad character? At this point in the movie, he knows that hundreds of people have died from Godzilla's attacks in the ocean. He literally adopts a kid from the island, whose mother and brother die in the attack, and yet he still vouches for not killing Godzilla.
どうかしたんでしょうか。先生は動物学者だから、ゴジラを殺したくないんだ。
He's right there!
Even after Godzilla attacks Tokyo for the first time, he still persists with this idea.
ゴジラを殺すことばかり考えて、なぜ物理衛生学の立場から研究しようとしないんだ。このまたとない機会を。
You adopted a kid whose family is dead because of Godzilla, and yet you still claim, I don't want Godzilla to die, no, he's an endangered species.
It seems that the people who criticize this stuff doesn't seem to understand there's a moral gray area here. There's obviously still going to be people who don't like these movies, and that's okay. The point of all this is to have logical explanations of why you don't like something. Because arguments like this don't add up.
Wow, that is just like you to think that these movies are good. I bet you didn't like the anime trilogy because you weren't expecting to have no monster fights in them.
That's a brave assumption to make there about everyone not liking something because on one reason in particular and not for any other reason other than that it wasn't good. It seems like you can't handle the fact that you can't be objectively right on something subjective like movies. It makes you come off as childish and not one to take criticism. I would highly suggest not make these kinds of arguments if you want people to take you seriously and have mature discussion of topics that don't lead to you acting like the victim because you are in the unpopular opinion.